Hello and welcome to yet another episode on JavaScript. So today we'll just go back to our codes very quickly and we'll add some more changes and we'll learn something more about JavaScript. And for that we have to go to our file, that is Orion login, and then from here, so we come to this part where we have our okay, we were not actually here. We were working on Visual Studio Code. So I should be going over there rather than coming over here. So let me minimize these things. So in the last class, we talked about those things, that is variable, and we talked about the Boolean, and we can also talk about like the nature of it. So for here, if you say that what kind of data type it is that equals false, so we can even console log over there and get the value for Z. Console log Z over here. So you see what we are doing over here is that we are making a console log of Z and we are making a console log of Z over here. So so let's see what we get. What we get is, so we have to run the code and start debugging and run it. Okay, so what we get is a false because over here, the value of Z is false. And then since X equals Y, because one is a string, one is a number, and this is a loose sort of relationship between X and Y. So it will, pass this if tag and go into the Z and it will make it true and we can console log it that to be true. And what else we can do, we can also know type of Z. We can know type of what? Z. So I'll put that in brackets and then we can again read. Now you see it says that type of Z is Boolean. So Z is false and the computer understands that Z is a Boolean. And then over here also like the same thing if you want to know the type of Z. So these are the things that we have learned so far. And now we will go to to another thing, and that is called as an array, an object. So I so here in we must have talked about object in the past in our HTML. So when we write a code using uh, X equals, and when we put a curly brace, then it's called as an object. Okay, the moment you see a curly brace, it's an object. Okay, and does the meaning of object that I talked about in the past is the same? Yeah, more or less is the same thing. But we're not going to discuss about that right now, but it is an object. So in that object will be first we will do an array and then we'll do the object. So for doing an array, for writing an array, we need a square bracket. Okay, so you see a couple of things that I forgot to talk about was this. You see three kinds of brackets over here. One, and then you have this thing, and then you have this thing. So it's called as parenthesis, and this is called as curly brace, and this is called as square bracket. Okay, or square braces, curly brace, square brace, and parenthesis. So this is used for writing arrays in it. So for arrays, and this is used for writing objects, and this is used after the function or a method. Okay, to copy it down. So this thing is for function methods. This thing is for the writing objects, and this thing is for writing arrays. Okay, and then we can just delete the drawing. And so here we can see that we have got our array, and then we can pass over here certain things like Dan, and then a comma, curly braces, man, and then tan, and then tan, and then after that we have got a ran, just passing some values inside it, Dan, man, tan, ran. Nothing so special about it. And so these are the four elements for items inside my array. And after that, we can even console log again that suppose you want to get to this man, if we want to do something with the man, and I can say that, so you see you need a this parenthesis because console.log is a sort of a method, and then we can do x dot not x dot, but rather we will use a curly brace and put a square bracket and put a 0 over there, and then we will try to run this piece of code and see what result we get. So just really refresh the thing, and we get Dan. So when you put a 0 over there, I get a Dan. That means I'm able to access this thing. So isn't that like if I ask you to, can you access a RAN and add an S to it? So it makes sense, right? Okay, suppose if you have got multiple items inside an array, and if I ask you to only get RAN and only get RAN, and when you get the RAN, then you add an S to it. So let's say this is a demand. I want to make RAN as RANs. So how will you do that? So there is some kind of a need now. A need is there to access this RAN. So you should know how to access it. So in order to access it, in array, things are put in indexes. So this is the index 0, this is 1, and this is 2, and this is my index 3. So indexing starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. You can have n number of records in it, but irrespective of the number of records, it will start from 0 rather than from 1. So my first record will be 0. So which is why when I passed 0 over here, I got a Dan. And another thing you see, I wrote it this way, x and 0, passing 0. So this is what it's saying is that x means my whole thing, but when I pass the square bracket 0 after x, so it will point to only this thing. Okay, so my x and 0 points to this thing. And when I console log to check whether it is pointing to the right thing or not, so so the result is shown over here, Dan. So that means I'm going in the right way. All right. Now I can clear the drawing. And if I ask you that, let's say you want to get 10, how will you do that? So what you will do is that you will write x, go to 0, 1, 2. Under the square bracket, you will write 2. And this is the value that is equals to 10. Okay, that is 10. So how do I know it's 10? So the computer will tell me it is 10. So I can use console.log and put that in a bracket. Okay, and let me remove this part. The moment I put that in a bracket, I'll get the answer. This is what I've been doing over here. So it's an easy thing, right? Now, so we can even see that it is correct or not. So you should also start doing these things by practicing, putting different values inside it, 1, 2, or 3, or whatever you can. And then if you refresh it, because whenever you make a change, you have to run the whole code again by putting this thing and then stepping over, and you see it is saying tan. So let's say, just for some kind of um, a bit of more learning, we can, as I said, that let's say I get tan and I want to add an S to it. So let's remove the console log since we're sure that this particular thing will give me a tan. So I need to remove my things from here. So so I can put that in a variable and say my y equals what? X arrow square bracket 2, that was 0 1 2. So this is my tan. So now y is actually tan now, because we know x and the square bracket 2 is a tan, so has also become a tan. So what I want to do is that I want to say that var z equals an s. Okay, so let me define it, because when you write something and it's an s, I said, not a, so it's an S. And now I want to add both Y and Z. So the result will be var result. Result will be my Y. And we know that my Y is 10. And then you'll add a plus over there and say Z. And Z is my S. So when I add Y and Z, I will get tans. So how will I know? So for that, I have to console log the result to see if everything is going correctly or not. And then when I console log result, you see it is helping me with these things, because computer can understand these variables are there. So two things: computer, if you write anything like Y, Z, these are your own choices. So the computer also read it, means the VS Code tool reads it and helps you with those things. And also it provides you the inbuilt keywords, those are there in it, that would be required, like the time we use type of. So type of is a keyword. So console.log results. And when we run and debug to see if we have done our job, and the result is tans, you see. So it's very easy to make anything, or it's very easy to um, add something into our records. And what if we try to add all the we want to add s to all of it? So there is a very important concept that now comes into picture, and that is called as a loop. Loop. So this loop actually will, if I tell you that, uh, is there some kind of a thing that could help you read the records one by one, rather than explicitly passing 0, 1, 2 over there? Rather, there is a process to read it. So the record means the code will read Dan first and then add an S to it. Then it will read man and then add S to it. Then it will read tan, then add S to it. And so it's true for ran also. So in that case, we have to invoke a special thing that is called as a loop. So when we write a loop, so let me just remove this piece of code. And when we want to write about how to make use of loops, so we use, there are different kinds of loops in JavaScript, and some of them I can tell you. There's a thing called as for loop. There is a thing called as reach, and there are for-in, and there is for-out, and there is map, and there is filter. So all of it can actually perform actions on each of it, but these two are like the same thing. Only the syntax, so sorry, only the syntax actually matters. The way you write the two loops. This one is easy to write, and this one is a bit tough. And they have got some special, special advantage over the other. So if for each is easy to write, then for loop has got some more special qualities in it. But both can serve mostly the same purpose, but with some advantage with for loop that it has got over for each, and for each has got some more advantages over for loop. Um, so what we can do is that we can first learn the easy out, and here we will be doing first the for each. So what we can say that X, so since we want to carry out that loop on X, so we have to type X over there and say for each. And after we type for each, then inside that we open this bracket, and then we can write a function, and then again we after function you every time you're supposed to put this parenthesis, and after that you're going to put the curly braces. So remember, whenever I write a function, so instead of going for each right now, I will first show you how to write a function, then we can come to for each. And then because all the things are so intertwined that if I start from here, then the other thing will come into the picture, and then if you don't know about it, then it will be a bit of a problem. So let's say I write a function and say add, and then the function is called as add. So how do we do that? And then we put the curly braces, and then we say var, same thing that we did, equals 10, and then we say var y equals 20, and then we can say result. We can say var, or just we can only say x plus y. That is the result we get. So we can just get the result out of it, x plus y. So what if we call this function outside, add, and what if we do console inside the add, we do console dot log of x plus y. Let's see if we get the results or not. So refreshing the page, it might give me some error or something. Yeah, it did give me error. It says y is not defined. So although we have defined the y over here, so let's delete this part over here and now say, let's remove this part as well, and let's say x plus y, and we'll pass parameters over here, v1 and comma v2. And this thing, what it will do is that it will add the two parameters, v1, and then it will add my v2. Here is my v2, and remove this thing. And then it has to return whatever it will do. So return it. And now we can use it in our function. Means we can call this thing add function and say passing the parameter 10 and 20. So what it will do is that it will read this thing and give me the result. So let's see if I put that in console.log. console.log, and let's see we get a result or not. Run and debug, and it says that okay, there is a thing p1 p2, and we're calling this function, and you see we get the answer 30 over here. So although this piece of code looks looks so small, means just 2 or 3 lines of code, but then it has got a lot of meaning. And you see a function in JavaScript is written using the function. It's a keyword function, and what I'm saying is add, and then I'm passing parameters inside it. That is my P1 and P2. So P1 and P2 parameters. So whenever it gets any parameter, when we call that function, so this thing actually is this, and this thing actually is this. So if I change the values from here, still, it will do. So what it's basically saying is that um, I'm just passing a parameter, and I'm saying that even if you change the values, still it will do the same job. So it is some kind of a reusability. So I'm creating a function that has a job to add. So so how do you call that function? So in order to call that function, you need to say add the name of the function. So it is called as a named function because the function has got a name. So call that name add and pass the values. So it has got 2 parameters. So I will add 2 parameters to add the 2 values. So I need to pass my values over here the way I have passed this, passed it 10 and 20. So if I had passed 30 and 40, so this thing will receive. So what it does actually is that the code reads this piece and says that it says add. So it comes back over here, add to the function. That means a work, and says that, okay, there are 2 things inside it, 2 parameters, that is 10 and 20. So these 10 and 20, P1, P2 got replaced by 10 and 20. And then over here, it is doing a job, P1 and P2, adding each other. We have to return it. That's a law. Or that's a rule that we have to return it. So just try to understand we have to return inside a function. If you're calling that function, the function should return something. Otherwise, the values won't be added. It won't return the value then. After adding, it won't return the value. So if I just remove the thing, delete from here, even the code will run, but the code will say, we didn't find that thing returned, and so we are not returning you any value. So what if I run and debug the code? So it goes over there, and when I call the function is called, it says undefined. So it's not getting any value that we are seeking. So which is why we have to put a return over there. So every time you write a function, and there are more nuances to it. For now, it's like using parameters inside a function. So this is how we write a function, and we can make the function more complex and more complex every time. Okay, so is it necessary to pass parameters every time? No, it's not necessary. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it isn't. Okay, so this is one way of writing a function. Now, so you saw a function that's basically a function. So there are 2 types of it. One is a named function, which you can call like the way I called it. Add. I named the function add, and then I can call it somewhere in this somewhere in my code, anywhere in my code. So this is my screen. I can call that add function anywhere in my code. So that's you can call it. So you can call somebody if it's got a name. So if it doesn't have a name, you can't call it. There's a name function, another one is called as unanimous. Unanimous? I mean, sometimes there is okay. I don't know what I'm saying right now. So make it unnamed. It's not unanimous. It's anonymous. You see, uh, the computer is making me crazy because the words are so similar. It is called as anonymous. Anonymous function. That means it doesn't have a name. Okay. But one thing is common for both of the functions is that you write a function like this. After that, every time when you write a function, you need to put these braces. And after that, every time you're going to write the curly braces. Okay. And there's another way to write the same function is another way I'm saying you mm, this thing at the first and you pass this equals and an arrow sign for this, and then you use the curly braces. So just flipping the things. So first placing this part over here, and for function, you give this sign, that means equals and an arrow, and then you do the same thing. So both are mostly the same things, but this has got some special advantages. But you saw how to write functions, right? So clear my drawing. And if you do not practice writing the way I have written, because from my experience, I can tell you that if you do not put your hands, because I will be the last person to put hands on anything or do some kind of a, repetitive task, because I look for shortcuts that could, only use my brain to understand something and not like writing, taking pen and paper and write it. So, um, so what I'm saying is that you have to take pen and paper and write it in a copy so that if you can write it 10 times without looking into the copy or anywhere where the help is, then you can understand it, and very slowly you will understand that it is a very easy thing, but at the starting, these signs and the way they are written, and you're seeing this for the first time, can be a bit demoralizing. So coming back to the thing that I was talking about, so I was talking about uh, uh, the for each method. So how you can do that, you can say X and dot for each. I can put over there. So what I'm saying is that this thing and read every bit of it. So we need to put that in a bracket, and here inside it, we will call a function. You see, function. And now only think about the function the way they are written. Okay, so this is how I wrote a function, a bracket, and a curly brace. All right. And then I will say, I will pass a parameter in it, and I will call that parameter as item. So here item actually means this thing, these things, item. So here the code actually runs multiple times, because when it sees for each, it runs multiple times for it. First, it will go and run this, then it will run this, and run this. Every time it runs, it tags the item, tags inside one of the data. So if the code runs from here to here and then go back to here, like a circle, okay, goes back, and then reads man, and then the item becomes man. So I was looking at parameter, some kind of placeholder, you can say, a placeholder that when the code reads, so you don't have to do it manually, but the code has got the power to do that. So it will read it, Dan, and then again the code comes back and reads the second one and reads man, and then the third one tan, and then the fourth one ran. So let's say the code reads for the first time. So what I'm saying is that, so the first time when item is read, so I will say that my item is Dan. So what I will say that item plus S. So if I do that, item plus S, that means Dan plus S. So again, the code reads to the second time the item will become man and man plus S, right? Now just delete the whole thing and we'll write that inside the code. So remember that that you should remember how to write the codes. Uh, like for example, I started with X, that is my this thing, the whole X, but it is saying that, and I've given a dot after that. So, when you start doing it, you would forget that there should be a dot or there should be a X. Right now, you might not forget it, but then, after some time, we'll forget, whether to put X or not. So it's a caveat that I'm mentioning that you need to remember these things. So X, and then after that, I put the built-in method that is called as a for each, and then um, I create a bracket. So you see the bracket. So you have to train your eyes into looking the holistic part of it. Otherwise, the thing will become complex. So it is X dot reach, and you see that's a bracket. Simply inside the bracket, you see I've written a function, and this thing that I told you a bit short while ago, that this is how it is. So, but when I put enter over here, so this thing gets separated. So this thing gets separated. Okay. And here I will write the code because after this, I'm coming out of the block. So if I come out of the block, no code will be read for this for each. Okay. So, so this is how it is. Now, now, what I'm saying is that what you need to do is that because I need to make the changes. So for that, I'll make another variable in which the changed array should be put. So I'll call that as array, changed array, I will say, or I will say changed x, and this is empty right now. Okay, so because I need to push the changes inside this empty array because Dan will become Dan's will go inside it, man will become man's will go inside it. So, and this is what I want to do. So I'll say changed, and you see it will give me a help. See changed x because now it can see that dot push. So see, it says that push what? Push, we need to push item plus what we need to push is x item plus in the curly braces I need to put s. I'm so sorry. Inside the quotation you need to put s. Right now, not talking about why I put this in quotation and why the item is not in quotation. Just for a help that if the thing that is not defined and it's coming for the first time, like and that is not a keyword also, then you need to put that in quotations. So which is why see the S item over here is already present. So I don't have to put that in quotations. So if you're thinking that item is not put in the curly braces over here, in the quotation over here, why? Because it is coming for the first time. So, but then these are built-in parameters. Not by the name, but they understand that the function understands that it can take parameters, so you don't do that. Okay, so but you will understand some more things about it. But right now, for now, you can understand that S is seen for the first time, and if it is not a key thing or like push, is not put in curly braces. Like push are keywords. Changed X I have made. What I'm saying is that in this changed X, that means what I'm saying is that in this bracket, this empty bracket, square bracket, push. So this is how it's written, push in the empty bracket, push, push what? Push here. So since push is a function, so you say this function, no, it's a built-in JavaScript function running behind the scenes. So built-in function, somewhere in the machine it's happening. So it's when you get a keyword, assume it to be sort of function keyword, It's a function. So somebody has written code for push. Okay, the framework or the JavaScript has written a code for it, using the same kind of a function type, like function and this kind of a thing, bracket and curly braces. So behind the scene is running. So push now, uh, when the function is written by JavaScript itself, it becomes a method. So you see, I will after the method, I'm going to use it. And remember, I told you this thing is used for two things. For function, you place it after a function, you'll place that after a method. Same thing. This thing is for objects, and objects basically mean a record of a person. A record of a person. When I say a record of a person, I mean to say his bio data. Okay, so a record of a person, it could be a record of a company. So company's bio data. So that's an object. Um, so it's only a record of one company. It's a record of one person. So when you have got only one person or one record of a company, you put that in the curly braces, okay? Curly braces. And then when you have got multiple records of a person, okay, so which we'll see shortly, because right now we are using single name. So maybe it's a record of a person, but only one thing is taken. What if I take a hell lot of more information about Dan? So there must be a and then hell lot of information about man and more information about Tan and Ran. So then it has to be written in such a way that it should still be an array, but it should have multiple objects inside it, So which is why I need a curly brace, a way to explain more things, not only one item, but many items inside it, but pertaining to one person only. So this one is very important over here again. So clear all the drawing. So what I'm saying is that right now it will read Dan, and after reading Dan, what it will do is that, and this item is used over here. So the function this is called as a parameter, function parameter, and then I'm using this thing inside my code to say, if you got the item Dan, then add S to it. So item is already here. If you got the item, because the code is going to read it one by one, and for each is doing the whole thing for it. Now, and we will also debug the whole code and try to see how it's functioning. So, and then now we can console log. You know what? Because we want to see the changed x. Okay, so console.log will be our change x. Now it will give me Dan's, Man's, Tan's, and Ran. So refreshing the whole thing. Uh, it's very important to put the breakpoint over here. So I haven't put it explicitly because it was already put, and I think it was put in the right place. So didn't care to change it to some other place. So it is there. Now you will see how the code runs right now. So let another one over there. So the code is right now at this point. You see the whole thing has become yellow. It has already read this point, and now it is to this thing, and then it will go to the X. So if you go ahead and just one step ahead, and it will now the code is here, and if you put that your cursor on top of it, it will say that it's Dan now. So my code right now is reading Dan, and when it read Dan, what it says that do one thing in this bracket, square bracket, that is array, changed X, um, and changed X as my array, this empty array. Push something inside it, and push what? The same item? No, push item plus S. And my item is Dan, and Dan plus an S, and both, see, the Dan item is Dan, and it is a parenthesis. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's quotation, okay? Every time I say parenthesis instead of saying quotation. So it's a single quote. But still, whether I told you it's a single quote or a double quote doesn't matter. So Dan, a string added to an S, it will become Dan's now. When it becomes Dan's, it will get pushed inside it, and the changed X will have Dan. So if you want to see those things over here, then you can and definitely see over here, because this is the place where all your results are being registered. So let's go ahead, and you see Dan's one result has pumped into this particular um, empty array. Now, when I press it again, it will not go over here and give me the result. Rather, it will go back and do the same thing, because it has to read everything, and because I have written for each over here, and then it's calling a function inside it, and then it will go back. It went back over there, and this time the item is man. So it read the whole thing, item man, because um, the debugger maybe is not hitting this breakpoint, but maybe I might have put it in a wrong place or something. So it should be here. Oh, it should be here. Okay. Now then, let's go ahead, and then it will again add S to the items. And then you see we have got two results over here, Dan's and Man's. So now do it again, and then you will get Hands, and then you will get the last one as Rands. And finally, you can although see over here, but I wanted my console to give me the result rather than going here and there and seeing everything. I just wanted the whole result in a go. So I get the result in a go, and you see I've got dance, math, dance, and rants. So imagine you're working in a company and you got a data and you're asked to do some changes inside the data. So are you going to change it, one by one? Like saying by putting 0 and then putting 1 and then putting 2. What if you have, 100 records? So are you going to do that manually? And next time, even if you do that manually, what if it becomes 200 records? So how will your code change unless there is some kind of systematic approach that does things on their own by reading the whole array, whatever the array that by reading the whole thing. This is over here, the whole array, and then adding s to each of the things. So this is how the for each loop work, and provides you with a new set of data. And then you can use these sets of data to bind to a table rather before when you got the data from somewhere, let's say from the backend, and then you want to make certain changes in it. And after the change has been done, you can bind means to connect it to the table, and then you can show the table. This is how the table looks like. So some kind of manipulation is required, and these manipulation cannot have been done without the use of the JavaScript and special methods like for each and those kind of things. Those are required in it. So this was one of it, and we can also do the same thing, exactly the same thing, using another kind of a loop that is called as a loop. So let's delete the whole thing, and we will have the same change to X, but this time we are using the for loop over here. Um, and we use say of for and we say of var. This one is a sort of a clumsy process. Index equals my 0. It will start from my 0th index, and then it will I index, and then it should be smaller than the x dot length, and when you get that, then you need to keep pushing your index plus 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 plus, and after that write the code over here, curly braces, and inside the curly braces you need to get changed x dot push. This time we are pushing what? We are pushing our x. We are pushing our x, and the x has got an index inside it, and then so when it pushes it, and then after when you got x dot index is my Dan now, so we need to add a plus to it and say add s to it, and so each of the results will now logged into changed x, and this is how it is done. Now if you refresh the whole thing, the same thing is happening over here. But don't you see it's like a See, we got a dans over here. The same thing is happening, and then mans and then tans. Every time the codes go back and read the same thing, and then finally you get the whole result the same way, right? But the point over here is it looks so clumsy and so intimidating that you know it's very, very tough to actually remember it in your first try. And let me tell you how many tries did I actually do to do this? Maybe around more than 100 tries. And it took me years to actually year to understand. So I understood it in one, means I understood it yeah, in let's say some goes. I understood it, but really I didn't have a real understanding of it. Like, why is a loop required? So let me just tell you in case you have also not understood it, because once a person understands it, he thinks it was such an easy thing to understand, why I was not able to understand. But maybe the first timer might might feel, so disconnected and like how loop and while loop. So let me just reiterate the thing that I told a short while ago that you cannot read the things one by one manually, like by passing. Let's say if you want to get Dan, and the way to get Dan is x0. If you want to get man, you can say x1 square bracket. And if you want to get tan, you can write x2. So this is how you. So are you going to do that? Or should you look for some kind of a mechanism that can read the data on its own one by one and do the changes that is required. So this is one of the thing that we have done over here. What we have done is that first we made an empty array. In that we did a for loop, and the for loop is like something like this: for, and we put some information inside it, and the curly braces. And for each, we write it x dot. So here we put x, this x, and then we write a for each, and then a bracket. Inside that, we write some function like this that I missed completely. This function, and then you write something and a curly braces. So inside this, so there is different syntax for writing the things, and it was an easy thing. So when you try to do it, if you do it once, then you will forget this. When you do it, then you will forget this, and you keep on forgetting things here and there. But even if you forget, not a problem, but you should not forget why loop is important. A loop is something that lessens your burden by reading the data on its own and not by like some kind of a manual entries that you're going to make. So what I was trying to say is that you just can't get the data one by one and add an S to it. I can get that by saying that x dot 0. So that I'm sorry. It's not dot x square 0, and this is my tan. Then I will say plus s to it, and then I'll console log this thing. I'll console log this thing. So if I do this thing, I will get dance. So for the second man, do you think I should write x1 and do that plus an s and do the thing and console log it just to see? Console log is only for seeing the result. The the codes are basically these, and not the console log is a part of the code. It's only for a help that is provided just to check that if the code that you have written is correct or not. Okay, so what if some newer data come? Then am I going to make the changes in my code and say like x4 over here, and then say add a plus to it, something like that? And do you see every time I write the same kind of a thing? So what I'm basically saying is that, is there a method that could read the things on its own and read it one by one and then give me the results, which could be stored in some kind of a place? So the method that I talked about for each is the one, and the method that I talked about right now for loop, that is the other one. But the only problem is, the way for loop is written is a bit like sort of, in a different way, and the syntax also looks very. But if you break the syntax, what it is saying is that I'm taking index to be 0. Now, this index over here is the index that is a 0, but over here it is my own index. It's a variable. If I make this as X also, let's say Y, it doesn't make much of a difference. Then every time I have to write a Y, instead of index, I'll write a Y over here, Y. Okay. But this thing is that I'm assigning some value to this variable that I call that as index. Okay. What I'm saying is that here, X dot length, what I'm again saying is that X dot length, you see, X dot length. So this length is a keyword, Okay, so so it's saying that read the array and dot length and tell the length of it. So it will tell me 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4. In total, we have got 4 entries into it. So in case if you want to see it, I can show it to you, Carol, and let's debug the console and just comment this piece of code for a while. So how I did, I selected all of it and pressed, this thing, CTRL and a hash. Okay, so it got commented. That means these codes won't be read. So let's come and say, what was it trying to do? X dot. It's trying to do something. Okay, X dot length I was trying to do. So we can say X dot L. See this keyword. I've not written it anywhere in the code. If I had written it anywhere in the code, it might give me a help. But if I've not written any code and still the help is coming, so you can see that you have got so many more methods like slice and filter and splice and includes and length and local string and those kind of things are there. And then I can say that length and you can use it. So, but how will I know x dot length is giving me the right result? So for that, I need to ask the console to console log this particular code, console log this particular piece of code and put that inside a bracket. And then you will understand that it is what it is saying is that it will read the number of records in it, and then it will give me the result. So if you so it's since the code is actually at this point and the debugger is put, although it's not reading this piece of code, but since the debugger is put over here, which the breakpoint is put over here, which is why it stopped at this point. Otherwise, see, it has already read the code and gave me the answer 4. That means it read it and give me the answer 4. So here, this part you see x dot length is 4. And I have said that index is my 0. You see, so 0 is less than this 4. So if it is less than 4, then what you need to do is do index plus plus. So again, index plus plus again is a confusing stuff. So you see it has got different layers in it. So unless you understand each layer, you won't understand the the whole code. So what if I say that var my y equals 20, and what if I say var y if y is there, what you need to do is, so my y is there, y equals 20, do y plus plus, and then console.log this y plus plus. I cut it and put it inside it, and then I want to see what's happening. So what basically I'm saying is that if y means y equals 20 is there, so I don't have to write the whole y equals 20 over here, but simply if y means y is there. So let me just comment this piece of code. And now if I try to get the result, I need to first delete the drawing and you see it is giving me 20. That means the code is saying that, see, I've not added one to it. Plus plus means add one to it. So when I remove it and add two pluses before it, and then I refresh the whole page and see, now it gives me 21. So the point is just leave aside this thing. Why putting it before plus plus, it added a 21, and putting plus plus after it did not do that. So that's a kind of inbuilt thing of JavaScript that if you add plus plus before it, it will do that. But it does also do add the one after if the plus is put, but then it does it after that. So so this is how it is. Now so over here, what the code is saying is, so you understood the point that plus plus actually means just go one more step ahead. So index plus plus over here is trying to just go one more step. So when you get this thing, so my index is 0 that I mentioned, and this thing is 4. This particular x dot length is 4. So 0 is less than 4. So the moment you get uh, that 0 is less than 4, of course, then do one thing, just add one more to it. So first it gets a 0, okay? First it gets a 0, and in the next step, this adds 1 to it. So the index becomes a 1, which is why the plus plus is written after it, because it is, if I had written plus plus before index, then the 0 will become 1 over here at the first go, and then instead of reading Dan, it will read man then, and that will be a problem. So I wanted the code to first let it go for the first time. So it reads 0 because my index is 0 and the first thing is a 0 over here. So just read the first one, and the next time add a 1 to it. So then it becomes a 1 in the next go. So this is how it is. So you got a 21. So you will get so this 0 will become 1 and 2 and 3 and so forth. So once you get this, so what I'm saying is that now x, so first thing it becomes a 0. So x0, that means Dan, x0, that means Dan, and then plus s to it means stands. Then it adds 1 to it, it becomes x1, that means man, and add s to it. You see that the way it was working in for each, it is also doing the same thing, but only problem is this thing looks so intimidating. So because it has got 2 or 3 layers inside it, this part, x dot length, and the way it is defined, the whole thing is defined over here. So if you do these things separately and try to understand, how these things actually are working, then simply the things will become easy. If we try to do the whole thing in one go, and without understanding how the plus plus and these things are working, then it might take a long time to understand it if you leave the layers of it. Okay, so let me just comment this piece of code and come back to rather delete this piece of code and come back to our piece and then even uncomment this thing. So if you put a breakpoint over here and then refresh the whole thing, remove the breakpoint from there. So you see the breakpoint is, I clicked over here and then a red thing came. And so when I put the breakpoint, then I refresh the whole thing. You can't do the reverse of it. So you can again do the thing, and you see it came back to the same point. Now you see that. Let's reverse it once again, and then you see now I put the breakpoint over here and here as well. So first it is trying to read this piece of code, and after that it will read this piece of code. So if you see over here, we will get the zeroth index, and it is already defined as 0 over here, so it doesn't have to bother about it. Uh, mm, so because I have set this to be 0, not this is 0, okay? So index is 0, and it's saying index plus plus, like the way we have written the code over here. Like you define something and go plus plus. So I define something 0, and then I'm saying go plus plus till uh, when will you keep going on is actually defined by this thing. You can go till the it is x dot length. So it's starting from 0 to 0, 1, 2, 3. So length is 4, and after when it reaches 4, before 4 it will stop. So let's go ahead one step. The moment I went one step, you see my index has become 0 because the code has been read, and now my index is 0 over here. So the moment it goes to the next step, it gives you the change x, that is an empty array over here. And then it pushes this thing to the array, and x and index 0, and when it reads x index, that means it's reading Dan. And once it reads Dan, it is adding an S to it, and then it goes for the second try, and this time the plus plus will make 0 to 1. Right now it is 0 still, but then now it will make it 1, and now it will again do the same stuff. Go to the next line of code and do the CX1 and S. So that means it's talking about this thing, and on and on and on the third time. So you see it's still pushing the data, the change data into our change X, and then you keep on and on and on and on. The final one is 3. So now the thing is 3 and 0, 1, 2, 3. That is just 1 less than this thing, because if you see the it is saying this part is index is smaller than x dot length. So yeah, it is 3 is smaller than x dot length. So you can still go ahead, go. It's saying go and do the changes. And now the moment becomes it asks it to be 4, and it does not satisfy this condition. It becomes 4 is smaller than x dot length, and can we say that 4 is smaller than x dot length 4? So no, it is untrue. So if it is untrue, it won't read this code. It will come to the console.log change x, and it will give the result by stepping over more step. And now this is how we get that. So I think the two loops for each and the loop, and how to deal with arrays, and how to get individual items from the arrays. We have done it. So in the next class, we'll be doing more about the JavaScript code, but the only way out to it is practice and practice. So just practice it. Maybe at the starting, you might take some time to understand it. Not directly jumping into practice, but part of the things that you can do, like the one I told you, how to write x, how to access Dan or man by putting x0, x1, x2 inside the square brackets. The part that you think that you can practice, you should practice that thing, and leave the other parts like these, for some other day to practice, but keep seeing it because it will be coming in different contexts again and again. And uh, and then you can like finally become a front-end developer, and you can develop SAP. You can develop UI5 apps for SAP. So thanks for watching the video.